Congressman Barney Frank, the top Democrat on the House Financial Services Committee, is pushing to limit the voting rights of regional Fed presidents on central bank interest rate decisions. Well, his first proposal to do so was back in May, and today he is submitting a new version of that proposal. Congressman Frank is joining us now live from Washington, D.C. Congressman Frank, good to have you here on Fast Forward once again.
Thank you.
Tell me the critical difference between the May proposal and today's version.
Well, I listen to people who say, look, you don't want all of the decision makers to be people who live in Washington. Now, I don't like the idea of private bankers appointing the people who then vote on important national policy. But I understood the objection that if it was only the Federal Reserve governors who all live in Washington during their term, that would be a problem. So I'm submitting a proposal now which says that the president, in addition to appointing the Federal Reserve governors subject to Senate confirmation, will appoint 4 other people from different regions, from 4 different Federal Reserve regions, that will give you that same geographic diversity. But geographic diversity is one thing. Giving non-elected officials picked by non-elected people, private citizens, who come from the financial community the right to vote on an important national policy is inconsistent with democracy. Now, I made that point in May almost as a theoretical one, but in recent couple of months it's become clear there's a real split between the Federal Reserve regional presidents who represent the financial community and those people appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate, led by Ben Bernanke. And the presidents have, on the whole, been opposed to the efforts that Bernanke has been undertaking to help stimulate the economy. And when we got a 7-3 vote, that's really a startlingly split Federal Reserve. But if you looked at it, all 5 presidential appointees and 2 of the presidents were on one side, 3 of the presidents were on the other. It's now clear that it's not simply a theoretical problem with democracy, but you have a constituency, the Federal Reserve presidents, representing the financial people who get to appoint them, opposing those people appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate on a matter of national policy.
Right, but Representative Frank, isn't the point of the Federal Reserve is to be a quasi-independent organization? So it's not just about geographic diversity, isn't it about diversity of opinion? To have dissension suggests that there is a healthy debate.
But not independent of the basic tenets of democracy. You get 14-year terms. There's no question. The chairman's term does not expire. He gets a 7-year term. Yes, they are supposed to be independent. They are not like the Secretary of the Treasury, etc. But what we have here is independence from any public input. You have, anomalously for a democracy, people, again, the self-perpetuating situation is this. Federal Reserve presidents pick the people to be on the regional boards. They are overwhelmingly people from the financial community. They don't represent the broad diversity of America's economy. They should not be the ones voting. So, yes, you want independence. The way you do independence in a democratic system is you don't have everybody fired the day the president takes office. You have overlapping terms. That's why we have other independent agencies, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Federal Communications Commission. Those are all independent agencies where presidents appoint and the senators confirm people for staggered terms. That's fully consistent with democracy. And again, as I said, this isn't purely theoretical.
I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but I do want to clarify one point at this stage. Do you have any co-sponsors on this? I mean, why make this a priority now? It seems as if there's enough going on with the economy for Washington that perhaps putting this on the agenda is not the best timing.
Wow, that's really surprising to me, that people would think that you kind of get, intimidated out of talking about important issues. The reason I raised it again was precisely that 7-3 vote. I'm not the one who has raised the issue of the Federal Reserve presidents. There's a great controversy in the country right now as to whether the Federal Reserve has gone too far, not far enough, or just right with regard to helping stimulate the economy. Quantitative easing and longer-term bond purchases, announcing that the rates are going to stay low for 2 years. These are fundamental issues. And the reason I raise this again is that it became clear at the last meeting of the Federal Open Market Committee that the regional bank presidents have now become a serious constraint on the ability of Ben Bernanke, an original Bush appointee, reappointed by Obama, and the other democratically selected appointees, small d Democratic, for the policy. So the fact is that the federal regional bank presidents are becoming an increasing constraint. And the notion that it's inappropriate to discuss something like that, frankly, really surprises me. I think that's unhealthy. Sure, the Federal Reserve should have an independence from being totally at the service of the president. But again, a 7-3 vote on fundamental issues like this, if it were purely randomly distributed, that'd be one thing. But it's increasingly now the people appointed by a president, whether it was Bush or Obama, being opposed by the regional bank presidents who don't represent anything other than financial community interests.
Representative Frank, has the chairman of the Federal Reserve weighed in on this? Has Bernanke talked to you about this at all?
No. I didn't want to put him, frankly, in a difficult position. He's got to work with these people. I had discussed it previously with Alan Greenspan, and I discussed it earlier with Bernanke. Greenspan's opposition to it was wholly unpersuasive to me. He said, well, he understood my arguments, but he said you would have a hard time getting people to be regional bank presidents who are competent people if they didn't get to vote on the open market committee. I reject that. I think these are very important jobs people will have. And again, I want to stress, you're talking about people who have no democratic small d sanction whatsoever. They are selected, self-selected by people they appointed, and then they appoint their successors from the financial community. But as far as talking to the chairman, no, he's got to work with these people. And I wouldn't want to put him in a position of having to say one way or the other what he thinks. Again, I do want to stress, this is not coming in out of the blue. I was frankly surprised that more people didn't focus on the fact that that 7-3 vote, an unusually divisive vote at the Federal Reserve, was wholly attributable to the fact that the regional bank presidents have increasingly come to represent different interests than the nation's general economic situation.
All right, Congressman Frank, we have to leave it there. We do thank you for joining us today here on Fast Forward. That was Congressman Barney Frank joining us with the latest on his proposal for changes he'd like to make to the Federal Reserve and voting members.